Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Let's Become a Beloved Society, Conversations Illuminating Your Path to Wholeness. And I'm hoping that my co-host, Mary, is going to be able to be heard. We were chatting in the studio. Everything was working fine, technically, and then all of a sudden I lost her audio. So let me do a sound check. Mary,
can you
you're
hear
unmuted?
me?
No, I cannot hear you.
Okay,
So
then I'll just
Mary, why
call
don't
in.
you just call me on my personal line, and I'll put you on speakerphone so we can keep you on the live stream, but we can also hear you. Okay, well, she's gone for a moment. So while we're waiting to get our ducks in a row here, let me remind everybody that we do these broadcasts typically live on Fridays at noon Pacific time and across the world at the appropriate times from there. Mary, hello, can I hear you? I can hear you. Let's see if we can get maybe so everybody else could hear you too. Say something more. Okay, you're still having difficulties. I lost you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay.
I put myself on speaker.
Okay, yeah. Your video went away. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Well, because I have to go out of here to go do the phone stuff.
Right.
So,
Right. All right. Well, it's not the best quality audio, but I'd rather have you be able to speak than not hear you at all. So we had one viewer and we've lost them. We weren't.
Lynda, this is what life is right now. So there you have it.
Exactly.
To enter our conversation.
Exactly. I'm just trying to think if I have anything here that would enable me to get your audio to be a little louder. Because you're very quiet. Maybe you could turn your volume up on your end.
No, it's all the way up.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
There's
a little.
nothing else I could do.
Okay. And
I don't have headphones, and if I did, I'd have to plug them into where I'm charging the phone. So.
Right. I got it. Okay.
I'll talk like this.
All right. Well, for those who have joined us, welcome. If you do have any questions, either now, so we'll start the program with your questions, or during the show, you can feel free to call the number that's on your screen, which is not the number Mary's on, and we can take your questions live. You can text to that number. You can email questions@walkingthroughyourwalls.com as well. And any of those methods will get you to us outside of the podcast time also. So I don't see anybody putting in anything in the chat that we can see. Now, a quick reminder, if you're on Facebook, we may or may not be seeing your comments. YouTube is very good for getting comments to us in the live chat as we're doing this, but we've had inconsistent results from the various Facebook pages. Just FYI. Okay, so since, go ahead.
Lynda,
yeah.
Another FYI thing is that the internet here at my job has actually been very spotty lately. Like it'll just stop and then start a few minutes later. That may or may not happen during this broadcast. So if that happens, you know that that's what's happening.
Okay. All right. And that may be what's contributing to the audio issues as well. Who knows? So Mary was just saying her internet where she is has been intermittent. And if we lose her, that's what happened. So I don't see any questions to start with. One question that we've had that we've not really gotten to yet is a question about divine timing. And I thought it might be a good one to start with today because of so many things that are happening right now. So, first of all, let's just talk about what is divine timing. The notion of divine timing is that everything that's happening is happening at the perfect time and place for its unfoldment. And it can be difficult sometimes when things are happening to accept that there's anything divine about them. And yet, if we are prepared to accept that life truly is like a play, and we are each characters in roles that we have agreed to participate in, what we know is that the outcome is already determined. With all plays, all movies, with very little exception, we know how it ends before it even starts, should we choose to read the play ahead of time, right? So we may not know where this is all going, but we can all rest assured that it is all going in the direction that divinity intends it to go, because there really isn't any other way it can work. So now let's talk about some specific examples of divine timing. 2 weeks ago, when we did this broadcast, I said I couldn't be here last Friday because I was going to pick up an employee that was arriving at the Anchorage airport. What I realized last Wednesday was that I was completely wrong about that. We could have done the podcast last Friday. And so I almost reached out to Mary to say, hey, we can do the podcast Friday. I was off by a day. And then for some reason I didn't. And I thought about reaching out to her again later in the day, and then it didn't happen again. And so then by the end of Wednesday, I was sort of wondering, well, I wonder, there's something keeping me, right, from reaching out to Mary. There's some energy that is making it so that even though we could do the podcast Friday, I'm not following through on making that happen. Well, it turns out doing the podcast Friday was never part of the plan. Mary at her work was really busy with something that she hadn't even gotten on her radar when we were doing the podcast the week before. Or she might have popped up and said, oh, we're doing graduation on Friday anyway, so it'll be good not to do the podcast because I'm going to be busy. But that wasn't in her radar on the Friday when we were doing the podcast. And Thursday, what I awoke to, and so I had already figured out I'm going to Anchorage on Thursday. And the employee was supposed to land at like 1:30 in the afternoon. So it was an easy day. I would drive up, I would get her, we would do some things, we would get home. I would be here in plenty of time to wake up Friday morning and do the podcast. But when I woke up Thursday morning, what I discovered was she was flying in from Thailand and her plane was delayed. And so she missed customs took too long in Chicago, and she missed her connecting flight to Anchorage. And the next flight wasn't for another 10 hours. So instead of getting in at 1:34 in the afternoon, she wasn't going to get in until 10 o'clock at night or so. So I ended up, not only did I not get her at the time, but then we ended up having to spend the night because I didn't want to drive back late like that. She'd been traveling for 2 or 3 days already. So I ended up spending the night and then, being tied up with all of that in the morning. So divinity already knew that we were not going to do a podcast on Friday. And that is all a part of that notion of divine timing. There's some other things that I could give examples of that are what I look at as divine timing. For some of you that know where I live, you know that there's been a large landslide on the road that connects our community to the rest of the world, right? We live at the end of a road, and that road has been cut off from the town of Seward, Alaska. And so the things that I find fascinating are to clear the kind of landslide that has occurred, you really need a very, very, very big digger. And for reasons that I still haven't figured out, there just happened to be a very, 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 very big digger in Seward already that could be allocated to work on clearing the landslide. The other thing that happened is that there were many, many cars that got abandoned on Lowell Point because the people had to get back to their lives, and there's no way to get the cars off of here. And so the various emergency responding agencies have arranged for a barge. But a barge is not the kind of barge that could come to Lowell Point, which has no dock, has no real landing places of any kind other than for a water taxi, a landing craft. So no ramps, no developed launch ramps, no docks. So you need a specific kind of barge, and you need a barge big enough to be able to take vehicles. And there just also happened to be the appropriate kind of barge here in Seward to tend to our needs. These are miracles. These are mysteries, right? They're the mysteries of life, because neither of those pieces of equipment would normally be here. And yet, when we needed them, they were already here and waiting. So I hope that gives just a little bit of background. Mary, do you want to talk about divine timing at all? You're muted. Oh no, I guess you're supposed to be muted on the screen.
Muted, it wasn't working. Should I unmute and see if
No,
work?
no,
Okay,
you're well. You could try it and see if audio comes through.
Any hope? No.
It didn't hold. There.
It probably keeps muting because I'm on the phone.
Maybe that's it.
Oh, interesting. Does my browser? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well?
Yeah.
Okay. The message on there said that my browser lost connection to my mic. So I don't know if that's because the phone was on them. Divine timing. I mean, I have a lot of examples from my life of this. I don't know if I have any recent. Sorry, I'm bobbing around because I'm holding the phone closer so you can maybe hear me. I don't even think about it anymore because I just sort of have faith in the play now.
Yeah, you're frozen on the screen.
But you can still hear me on the phone?
Right.
Okay, so I'll keep talking then.
Please.
Because I'm like, yeah, the StreamYard is not working here. It's the thing I told you where the internet is doing its thing.
Right.
They're trying to fix it. Maybe I think we should switch to this topic. The complicated difficulty of life right at this particular moment. I mean, we got the Mercury retrograde. We're in that eclipse tunnel. There's like all kind of stuff going on. And people are just having a really hard time. And, you already mentioned the landslide up there. And it's kind of like I keep having that image of the dumpster fire. Or alternatively, like Mad Max, It's like, so I'm thinking, I don't really have to say anything specific about divine timing, and maybe it's time to move on to, since, the internet just kicked me out. Kind of a good example of the chaos that we were talking about.
Well, you want to talk about chaos. So here's a perfect example. Nanette has joined us. It looks like she joined us on YouTube. I wrote back to her left-handed, because with my right hand, I'm holding the phone close to my mic. So the people on the podcast can hopefully hear you. And so I typed back with my left hand. I misspelled her name. I said, "Hi, Nanette." Nothing is capitalized. And it went to all the Facebook streams, right? So it went to love. It went to Love Is Our Essence and We Love Us, and it's crazy. It's just, it's like I don't understand. Nanette says yes. She's been here for a while. Well, that's great. Wonderful to know that you've been with us through our trials and traumas this morning.
Yeah.
I have to agree with Mary that life is really very difficult right now. And that was one of the questions last week as well, was, or 2 weeks ago, that we touched on, was I thought the astrology was indicating that things were going to get better, and yet things just seem to be getting worse. And so I wanted to talk about that for a little bit, because that to me is a real indicator of where we are on the, I'm going to call it, chaos spectrum. So in the beginning, one of the definitions of chaos is that that's what existed before the universe organized itself. And I believe that what's happening here is that a reorganization is taking place. And because of that, we actually have to move in to chaos again in order for the reorganization to occur. You can't just flip a switch and go from a fearful, angry society to one based in love. There has to be a deconstruction of the fear and the anger and that whole model, the patriarchy, the control, the capitalism, all of that all has to break down before you can build something new. And the thing is that because this is the play of divinity's life, the new already exists, right? If we could flip ahead in the script, we would see it. But we're not there yet. And so we can't see it. But in all real ways, it already is there. It is just waiting for us to embrace it. So the real chaos that we're experiencing now, both individually and collectively, with so many things going wrong, and then just the energy of trying to move through a day in life without everything sort of popping up and giving you a hard time as you go past. It's all contributing, right, to the deconstruction to allow the reconstruction of something new.
Right. The image I had at the beginning of what you were saying was like when you go to organize your closet and you take everything out and dump it on the bed and then you put it all back in neatly.
Right.
It's like we're at the point right now where everything's been dumped out on the bed. That's how I literally saw it. Like all the drawers being emptied, it's like all the stuff is dumped out and the mess is made, but nothing has been put back together again yet.
I think you're right. I don't know how close we are to, I don't know if everything's out of the closet and on the bed yet, or if there's still a few things. Maybe it's not just the closet, it's also the dresser. And maybe there's still a few things in the dresser drawers. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I love that imagery. I really do, because everybody, it's such a relatable image, because we know what it's like when our closet gets out of control, and we know what it's like when our closet is nice and neat and orderly, and you know right where to look for something. We're definitely not in that phase right now.
No, we're really not. The other thing I'm thinking about is pickup sticks. Do you remember pickup sticks, that game for when you're children?
Right.
And you like shake them up and dump them out. It's like, that's how I feel. Like we're in the stuff has been dumped out stage.
Right. Right. Either that or it's a big
out.
Jenga tower and we're just about to pull the last or a Lincoln log, you know.
Damn thing.
Right.
That's funny.
Right.
You know what's funny? I'm sitting here looking at my Be Happy glass that I have water in, and I was thinking, oh, I'll hold that up and show it to everybody. And I didn't do it in the first 5 minutes.
Right, right. Well, you actually would have had to have done it before we went live, really, but to hear you and see you.
I had video in the beginning, though.
Oh, that's right. That is right.
I could have at least held it up, and y'all could have seen my cute little Be Happy cup next week, God willing.
Yeah. I wonder, does Nanette have anything she wants to contribute to the conversation about chaos? I saw some examples. That's the other thing, is that if you pay attention, like we're all experiencing chaos in our lives, but if you start to look around, you'll see signs of it in other places as well. And I have these two examples from the other, it was last week or the week before, when I was driving back. I was driving from a different trip to Anchorage on the highway. I had gotten almost home. I was at about mile 6 on the Seward Highway, and there was something on the side of the road, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It didn't belong there. I knew that. I know this highway pretty well. And Nanette says she just burst out laughing. Chaos. So I'm driving along. I see this thing, and I get closer to it, and it is really right on the edge of the road, like the white stripe, and then maybe there's 6 inches, and then there's this thing. And the closer I get, I realize that it's a chair of some kind, like one of those folding camping chairs, the ones that squish together and then come spread out when you sit in them. Something like that. And it had a small child in it. It looked to be maybe a 9-year-old girl. I think she was blonde. And she appeared as I went past to have her head down, and she was like working on a notebook in her lap. And the word that came to my mind was chaos, because, well, you know, if my tire had even been partially on the white line, I would have hit her. Why would the parent of a child, I mean, I could understand where a child may not have good common sense, but where were the parents? Why was this child sitting on the side of the road like that? It struck me as a moment of chaos. And then I got a little further down the road, and I came to a place where the senior center was on one side of the road, and there's a laundromat with a larger parking area in front of it on the other side of the road. And on both sides of the road were adult men with baseball mitts and several small children at their knees, and they're playing catch across the road. And they're not even very good. And so a lot of times the ball is actually going into the road. And everybody I've told this story to just says the same thing. Who does that? Who does that? And you're modeling this to the children, that you play catch across when there's a park. I kid you not. There's a park a half a block away from where this was happening. And so again, chaos. And what I think, if you start to pay attention, that's what you'll see more and more, is these random acts that people are engaging in that make no sense in the current way that we think about life. Maybe there's another place where it makes sense to play catch across the road or sit at the edge of a busy highway in a chair. But in this 3D permutation that we're all experiencing, all of these things strike me as just total chaos. And then, of course, there's, what Mother Nature has done too. Not just here, but, lots of places people are experiencing the chaos of natural disasters. We're experiencing the chaos of really significant gun shootings. And again, multidimensional, right? Because it's not just about the guns, it's also about racism, or it's also about prejudice. So we're really in a energetic place of lots of disruption. Mary?
Yeah. One of the things that I said recently on someone's post somewhere was, it's like the regular rules don't apply anymore.
Right.
And it kind of makes sense if we're in this place where, it's like a tangle of timelines, I feel. Like, things are shifting, and I feel like, okay, the play is written, but I feel like it's one of those choose your ending books right now, sort of, It's like timelines are juggling for which one we're going to end up on. This is what I feel like. And the veil is very thin. So I feel like reality is kind of, this might be too woo-woo for some people, and if so, I'm sorry. But, like, reality is sort of, like, permeable and flowy. So it's like where we're used to having the 3D world seem more stable. Now, let's just all admit right now that the 3D world is not as stable as it seems, because this table that my drink is on is actually atoms swirling around each other and mostly empty space.
Right.
So it's like the world arranges itself into this seeming solidity so that we can deal with it. But really, it's not that. It is a lot more permeable and swirly and less solid than it seems. So what I feel like is right now, it's like I'm seeing it almost like a sort of a vortex, or like, what, like in the water when you have the swirly hole.
A whirlpool. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're in that place where everything is sort of, we're trying to find the new center, right? That's the aspect of chaos that I'm thinking about. When everything falls apart and before it's put back together, how are we going to put it back together?
Right.
We're not going to put it back together the same way it used to be. It's going to reconfigure itself in a new way. And all the details of that way have not yet been determined. That's how I feel.
Right.
So it's like the regular rules don't apply, and we don't really have the new rules yet.
Exactly.
So that's the way in which I understand what's going on, because it's like little examples that, yours are good and they feel very like a book to me, like I read that somewhere. But my examples are less like that, and it's like, just things like the people. We went from the people on the trolley almost all wearing masks, to this world where it's like somebody told me that you don't have to do that. It's like somebody told them you don't have to do that anymore, but nobody told me that. Like, as far as I know, the rule is still we're supposed to be wearing them. But, like, all the people are like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. And just other kinds of things. It's just like, there's a lot in flux.
Yeah, let me share what Nanette said. Nanette shares that she's got some kind of energetic activity going on in her home. She's got her mother's ashes in a very beautiful cloisonné container. And just before she joined us on the podcast, she noticed that the container was upside down. Like,
oh my God.
and one, the assumption here is obviously Nanette did not put it upside down. And so how did it get upside down
Crazy.
on its own? And I've got to admit, in terms of the 3D world and how it's behaving, not just the people, but the stuff as well, is jumping around, falling, all kinds of things like that. I've heard lots of people making comments to me and seen it online where people are commenting about, right, it's too heavy. Right, it's too heavy for the cat. The cat didn't turn it over or knock it down.
You can't see me nodding, but I figured I'd tell you I'm nodding along with everything you're saying.
Right. That's good to know. Good to know. Yeah. So so let me share some personal chaos, just because I'll talk about how I'm coping with it, and maybe it will be relatable to other people. So this landslide has cut this community that I live in, and also where my lodging business is, off from the town of Seward. And we are a tourist destination, and this is the beginning of the tourist season. And we should have been virtually sold out for the month of May. Now, coming into the landslide, and it's interesting, again, this loops back to the divine timing idea. Weeks coming up to the first 3 weeks of May, I've been observing that the calendar was really very open in a very unusual way. And when that happens, at that point, there's not much you can do. You can run some specials, you can, try and reach out and create some business. But in general, we've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's remarkable how open the calendar was. And then, of course, there was the landslide that cut us off. So the benefit of having the more open calendar is that I have way fewer people to deal with in terms of, excuse me, I just need to clear my throat. And again, when stuff like that happens, that's the throat chakra acting up, either in resistance to what's being spoken, or perhaps there's some truth I need to speak about it. In this case, the problem becomes the remaining reservations. Just dealing with those have been quite traumatic, because each person reacts differently to what's happened. And so it's not as if you can just say, oh, here's the answer, and apply it to everybody, because everybody is unique and everybody had a different intention when they were coming to the community. So it's really been very difficult. It's been very difficult dealing with the government agencies who are handling the emergency response. It took almost a week to get anybody to do anything. Luckily, we have a family that has a business out here that has water taxis already. They have landing craft, and that's a part of their regular business. And they immediately started helping the community and helping their neighbors and providing transportation back and forth to town. But they can't continue to do that at no cost. And getting them help and reimbursement took too long, in my personal opinion. And now what's happened is the emergency response is that people that live here can travel back and forth on the water taxi for free. But anybody else even if they're doing business here, even if they're intending to live here for a few days, they aren't covered. And each one of them has to pay $30.90 one way to get here or to leave here. I had one family figured out it was going to cost them $1,680 on top of their already expensive reservation to get here. So then there's the unknown, right? Is this the only landslide? Will there be more? Will it come down here? Will it come down in another spot? How long will it take to clear the road? Are we looking at a couple of weeks or a couple of months? Are we looking at abandoning the road? Is it too much? Will the determination be that the road is no longer safe and we need to abandon the road? All of these things are out there as possibilities. And as being a property operator, it's what we have to live with. My husband and myself, the other people that live out here that have lodging businesses, we're all dealing with this, right? And so what I just wanted to take a few minutes to do is share how difficult it is, even for me, someone who understands that nothing ever happens that isn't in divine order, someone that understands that nothing is ever given to us that we can't handle, someone that understands that there's nothing wrong, that in any given moment, regardless of what it looks like, there's nothing wrong here. It's a play. We're in it. Our role is simply to be the best we can be in that moment. And I have to be straight up and say these are the hardest days I've ever lived through. And I mean, I thought living through COVID, with the CDC changing the rules for lodging businesses every day or hour sometimes, I mean, my head felt like a punching bag after that year, trying to navigate this business through that. The year before COVID, we had to navigate through forest fires and people arriving to air in our community that was unbreathable, with readings that tell you to stay inside. People come to Alaska to see the wildlife and the beauty, and they're met with air that tells them they need to be inside. That was a difficult year. COVID was a difficult year, but I've got to say, living through this landslide in the midst of the chaos of life already is the most difficult thing I believe I've ever had to do. And what I find myself doing at night to calm myself, because remember, our housing is wired to fix things, to protect us, to take care of us. That is the impulse of our housing, is to keep us safe and take care of us. And so when you find yourself in a state of crisis similar to the one I'm in, the ego is constantly trying to take over. The mind, it's insanely difficult to control the mind of the ego that wants to run through every scenario and figure out, well, if this happens, then we'll have to do this. And if this happens, we'll have to do this. And if this happens, we'll have to do this. And at the same time, I know that I just need to breathe and stay centered and do the best I can with the information I can to serve my guests in the best way that I can to try and preserve our business so that it will survive this event. And I have to tell you, it's not easy. Not been easy, and doesn't seem to be getting any easier. So, if you find yourself in a similar situation where you're really struggling with something, the best thing you can do for yourself is to just try and stay calm. I keep thinking of that meme, stay calm and carry on. It's and to not take what's happening personally. So I think Mary has something to say, and then I wanted to segue into a quick review of Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements, because I think of all the teachings that are out there, these four things alone that he talks about, the four agreements, are incredibly handy tools right now in the moment to help us get through these trying times. Mary, did you have something you wanted to say?
I do have something I want to say. One thing is, you said stay calm. And I want to say that sometimes we might have to freak out a little bit before we can be calm. You know, I don't want anybody to feel like I have to be calm while my hair is on fire. And I personally, you know, I enjoy my life much better since I don't make rules about how I'm supposed to handle things.
Right.
And by that I mean, I often have my little freak out, and it's like, you know, it's a controlled burn, let's call it. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is driving me crazy, you know, and I might do something to get the physical release out, like, you know, what I said. I might, like, you know, do a little dance or something. I mean, physically, energetically, I don't try to be calm when I'm not calm, right? So that's what I'm saying, is if you have an energy to discharge before you can get to calm, that's a good thing to do. I a long time ago started getting into active meditation, because sometimes the body just has a physical charge it needs to get out. You know, get your yayas out, and then you can find it easier to take a breath and go, okay, you know.
I want to agree with you. I want to agree with you, but with a caveat, because the ego will drive the body to do things that are actually out of character. I just want to caution people that I understand what Mary's saying, and to a very great extent, she's right. Well, you don't want to suppress your emotions. When I say, you know, try to stay calm and carry on, it's not a matter of denying what you're feeling or in any way repressing those feelings. On the other hand, for example, yesterday, had I actually allowed myself to act how I felt, I would be so embarrassed today by that behavior. And so I'm really glad that I did not act out my hair on fire. Even the degree to which I allowed myself to act on it, I'm a little regretful of. So yesterday, I took our two employees that are foreigners. They're foreign exchange students. I took them to Social Security in Anchorage, and we got their Social Security cards, or got their applications in, and we were coming back. But because of this whole thing with the road, we have to time our arrival and departure with a water taxi. And the city of Seward had given us free parking right near the water taxi, and now they've taken that away, and you have to walk 6 to 10 minutes to get to your vehicle, or to leave your vehicle and get back to the water taxi. And we were really short on time. And they've also instituted a parking attendant who's like stopping everybody and saying, you can't go here and you have to go over there. And I didn't have time for that. And so I drove around her, and then she started chasing me on foot. And so I put my window down and I just called out to her, I'm just unloading. So she understood that I understand what's going on here. But even my tone of voice was probably not what I would have chosen in a calmer moment. Right. So my hair was on fire. I'm in a hurry. I'm feeling stressed. I'm also very angry about how we're being treated. And I let myself express that even more than I would have chosen. So you just want to make sure that you're not taking it out on someone. I think that's really the key. Go ahead and express it. If you're at home, punch a pillow, scream at the top of your lungs, let it out. Don't, by all means, don't stuff it in or try to deny it. But at the same time, you still always want to be doing your best. And so do try to be sensitive to those around you and not express your hair on fire in a way that may diminish you in their eyes and diminish you to yourself. I want to go ahead, Mary.
I wasn't quite done, but I want to agree that I was not talking about interacting with other humans. I was talking about interacting with my own emotional state.
Good.
And yeah, that would be what we call littering. Don't litter your emotions on other people as much as you can help that. Also, however, we are human, and sometimes we mess up. And when we mess up, it's good to just acknowledge that and be accountable.
Right.
So, it's human to occasionally snap at people, and usually when I do that, if possible, sort of instantly follow it up with "I'm sorry." And in that instance, you probably couldn't because you're driving through. But yeah, the thing is, everybody's kind of going through the same thing, so we all have to try to be as sensitive as possible in our interactions with other humans who are going through stuff. I want to add something to the weird chaos stuff that just occurred to me in the context of this conversation, because yesterday or the day before, I was going home on the trolley, as I do, and I switched over so someone could sit next to me if they wanted, because it was pretty crowded. This guy asked me, "Can I sit there?" I'm like, "Please do." So he sat down, and he almost immediately started falling asleep, on my shoulder.
Aww.
Talk about chaos.
Aww.
And what's not that doesn't happen.
Right.
So then he wakes up and he's like, "I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "It's fine. I just thought you must be really tired." And then we started talking. But I had sort of made a decision, this guy is tired. He's falling asleep on my shoulder. I'm going to be the mother and let him sleep on my shoulder. It's sometimes it's just opportunities to experience different ways. I think that's me putting into the world what I want to see. I want to see a world where if the guy falls asleep on the stranger's shoulder, it's oh, okay. When I was 5, I fell asleep on a woman in church who didn't know me. And she just let me sleep there until my sister found me after church. Anyway, I forget. I think I also wanted to say that since I just have really sort of radically accepted the play is right,
Right.
however weird everything seems, I'm not in charge of the universe.
Right.
The universe is in charge of itself, and I'm a character in the play. I can, the scenes I'm in, I can improvise a little and have some input. Ultimately, the whole play is not my charge.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
My job is here in my little circle to do the best I can, which varies. Some days it's great, some days it's, less great. And trust that whoever is directing the show has it right. Because, frankly, I don't want that responsibility anyway.
Right.
Okay. Now
Right.
I think it's a great time to talk about the 4 agreements. I've been I keep mentioning them to someone I work with all the time. And so take it away, Lynda.
Okay. Well, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to get into them in depth, but we'll go through them today, and then maybe we'll pick up with a review of them at the beginning of the next podcast as well. So Don Miguel Ruiz has written a small book, very small book, called The 4 Agreements. And if you Google that, you can, and go to images, you can find each of the 4 agreements with a very short paragraph underneath it. The book is a little longer and goes into more depth. But the 4 agreements are, first one is, be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using words to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word to offer love. Never use it to cause fear or pain in another or yourself. The second one is, don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a result of their own dream or perception of their rules. We make rules about how things should be, but when you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. So this one in particular, I think, is one of the absolute most important things that we can learn how to do in our lives. When someone says something to you, it is a reflection of them, not you. And that is absolutely fundamental to get through our heads. And just think of an example of something that someone said to you that hurt you or upset you. If you realize that it's about them, you can relieve yourself of whatever it is that you took on from their words. And I want to do the other 2, so I just don't want to spend too much time on this one. But this one in particular is, I think, one of the most important things, like I said, that we could ever learn. The next one is also...
I totally agree with that, Lynda. I just want to say, I totally agree with that, and I tell people that one all the time.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. The next one is also, of the 4, these 2, don't take anything personally and don't make assumptions. Find the quiet courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we go through life, somebody says something to us. First of all, we take it personally, and then we make assumptions about it. Yeah. Or we make assumptions about the person, or we make assumptions about a situation. And so, there's an old saying, a very old saying, when you assume, because it's assume is spelled ASSUME. The saying is, when you assume, you make an ass, ASS, out of you, the letter U, and me. And that's true. That is absolutely true. Try never to assume anything. Try always to keep your mind open, that what you think about a situation or about a person in a situation is likely not the whole picture. Mary?
Yeah, I just totally agree.
And then the last agreement of the 4 agreements is always do your best. And you see, I think, first of all, by human nature, we are always trying to do our best. It is how we are. But let me read this first, though. Always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And I can tell you, when I was a young teen, maybe a preteen, one of the things that I was studying at that time were different religions and what different religions meant. And one of the things that I didn't understand was this notion of guilt. Because in my understanding of both my life and how life works in general, we're always trying to do our best. That is how we operate. For example, if there's a car accident or a building on fire or somebody drowning, people don't run in the opposite direction. They run towards it because our nature is to help. We're a collective. We are actually all connected, although most people don't understand that, but we are a collective. And we do, by nature, care about each other. And so always doing your best and being impeccable with your words sort of go hand in hand, in my mind, to being our basic nature. We do have to attempt a little more attention, I think, with our words sometimes, but our basic nature is to be of help to one another, to serve one another. It's actually our real purpose, is to be here in service to each other to create heaven on earth. That's each of our lives. Nanette chimes in, we are characters in search of an author. Our author, absolutely, right? We're the characters in search of our author. And so we're running up on the end of the hour, and so I do want to be respectful of people's time and wrap it up here. But I think we'll start the conversation again next Friday with this subject of the 4 agreements. And perhaps those of you that either are here now or listen to the broadcast in the next week will join us and maybe share your thoughts about the 4 agreements and what kind of a role you can see them playing in your life. Remember, when somebody says something to you, it is a reflection of you. If they say, I don't like your dress, that's not about your dress. It's what?
Of them. You said it's a reflection of you and you meant of them.
No, I said it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of yeah, it's not a reflection of you. Yeah, it's a reflection of them. It's not about your dress. Right. It's about them and what they think about your dress, which really, what other people think about your dress isn't really your business. If you like your dress, that's all that matters. And so try applying these 4 agreements this next week, and I would love to hear some feedback. So just as a reminder, between now and then, you can phone in to the number on the screen, 907-351-3003. If you don't reach me, you'll get voicemail. You can leave a voicemail. You can text to that number, and we can bring your question forward at the next podcast. You can send an email to questions@walkingthroughyourwalls.com. And I think that's it. You can email Mary at marylaughsloud@gmail.com. And I would like to thank those of you that have been here and those of you that watch after the fact. We are here in your service to you. So please take advantage of this opportunity to explore questions that you may not have a place to ask them elsewhere. So thank you. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you for indulging our technical difficulties. We hope we figure it out by next week. Thanks so much. Namaste. Thank you to Nanette for joining us as well.